Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Good morning. My name is Ahmed Serag, so I'm professor and director of the AI Innovation Lab at Weill Cornell Medicine. It's an US institute. My branch where I initiated this lab, it's in Qatar, in Doha. Mainly, I founded the lab a few years ago to be as an AI innovation hub within the Middle East and the region. Just a little bit of background about myself. I spent almost the last 2 decades working AI, mainly in healthcare, establishing lots of innovations that we took commercially also through some of the companies I worked through, like Philips and Novartis Pharmaceutical Company. So today, I would like to get you through a little bit of the debate that has been going there in the industry over the past years. Does any one of you know these 3 people? Can you raise your hand, even if you know one of them? No? Okay, I see one only. So these are supposed to be the 3 godfathers of AI that initiated most of the technology that we use nowadays. Either we call it convolutional networks or later on the transformers and the subsequent technologies. Interesting enough that they initiated these technologies, but at least 2 of them agreed that these technologies are very dangerous to our society. But also has been very interesting that the 3rd person, which is Jan LeCun, has a very different opinion about this technology and that it's actually not harmful at all. So what I'm trying to take you today is we'll try to see what AI in particular has done in medicine over the past 20 years and see the evolution that happened and be able to see at the end if we can answer that question or not. So as you can see, most of the popular media and magazines started to talk about the rising machines and AI in medicine and how this is really transformative, transforming the way we get our healthcare delivered, the medicine and everything. And even new scientists came with these very bold statements and questions a few years ago, asking, is finally AI ready here to replace our doctors or not? We can see that AI, in fact, didn't start over the past few years. It started as an idea in probably around 1940. But why we have all of these advancement we have now in AI is because we have access to infrastructure and digital storage that we never had before in the past. And the medical domain is one very good example. As we can see, we have now access to digitalized imaging of our scans. We collect signals from wearable device that most of us might have now a smartwatch that we can use for that. These heart signals, everything really now is digitally collected. And being able to really move this through an AI machine, we'll be able to develop life-saving innovations, either from a very early prediction of a disease, or even how we can tailor and make use of all of these informations to be able to, what we call it, develop personalized medicine that tailor and fit the patient that could benefit them the most. The evolution really, you can see that it has 4 main stages. With perception AI was started by developing individual models of AI that could look at one specific modality. It could be imaging, it could be electronic health records, and the main aim is really trying to answer very simple questions, could be yes or no. Then we move to generative AI, and none of us probably now can live without the likes of ChatGPT, where it starts to generate for us data. So instead of giving us simple answers, as we said, it starts to generate text, and we will see that it will be able to generate also like images and videos. Moving on to agentic AI, and we had a very great example in the previous session about agents, where we start to see now different models or agents that can interact to each other and being able to develop specific tasks. And this is hopefully leading us to the next wave, which is autonomous AI. We'll be able to have these models that could even deliver very sophisticated health services, like could be even deliver like automated surgeries with robots integrated with AI. So let's see some of the examples of perception AI. This is one very serious condition, diabetic neuropathy, where you can see some damage in the nerves that could lead to some symptoms. It could be as simple as numbness in the legs, as we can see here, but could really move to some other parts of the body, like the digestive system and the cardiovascular system. There have been devices like this one, it's called Cornell confocal microscopy, where you can have a non-invasive image of the cornea where we can clearly see the nerves as we can see here. With this non-invasive device, doctors relied on the manual annotations of these nerves to be able to assess if there's any damage or not. And this is, as we all know, very tedious process and very time-consuming. And still, if you have multiple doctors performing this assessment, there will be some variabilities among them. We have developed a methodology based on state-of-the-art transformers that should be able to take these scans of the cornea and being able to assess if the image we're looking at of a specific patient is a healthy control or has this diabetic peripheral neuropathy. The most interesting part, it doesn't give us only the classification, but also it shows that this heat map, which is give us this sense of explainability, which is very important in the healthcare domain. Doctors always are not interested only to know a decision, but to understand why this decision has been made by the machine. Moving on to another interesting problem, which is drug-drug interactions. Most of us could be even like taking just a simple painkiller, and then you go to a doctor, start to prescribe you another medicine. This is the simplest case, but in very sophisticated cases, some of us could be having really multiple medicines. The interactions between these drugs is very important because it could reduce the efficacy of a drug, but also it could lead to some very sophisticated adverse effects. So how doctors traditionally look at that? There is databases of drug interactions. One of the most popular one is called Drug Bank. Drug Bank has more than 70,000 drugs with more than 1.5 million of interactions. It's not even as simple as it shows you if drug A interacts with drug B and if they interact and what is the severity of interaction. As you can see, it's very sophisticated. You have lots of information, description in long text, but also it shows you references to medical literature to kind of clarify why this is important and why we should pay attention to the interaction between these two drugs. This is an example here where we ask a simple question about does drug A interact with drug B? And we can see in our ground truth, we have a simple text or paragraph telling us if they interact or not, and some explanation. At the end, you can see the interaction is moderate. We have developed a language model called D3. D3 has been able to exactly give us explanation similar to what we have in the ground truth with the same interaction severity as we can see. We have compared that to state-of-the-art models like Qwen, the Chinese model, and Gemma from Google. As you can see, our D3 actually did a much better job compared to these two popular models where they got the interaction incorrect. We have also looked at Mistral and Llama from Meta, which are another two popular models, and they get more or less correct answer. But what has been very interesting about what we have done is that we have built this using 1,000 times less parameters. So now with this D3 model, tiny model, you can get very accurate answer comparable to what you get with Llama, but instead of using 70 billions of parameters, we used only 70 million parameters. Very small model. It could be deployed on very small devices that could be held within the healthcare practice, even in the pocket of a doctor. Let's move on to generative AI. Generative AI is not only about generating text. We can also generate images, and in multimodal sense, it's very important because it could help us in very important scenarios, like generating medical reports. Usually, generating medical reports, could be 30 minutes to an hour. It needs, again, multiple doctors to look at the case. And as we can see, there could be also like some diagnostic errors. It's definitely overwhelming workload, especially in some domains like pathology. And again, if there's case complexity, this means the time and that they spend on the case could be longer. We have looked at that as well. And our example was CT scans. And what people have done in this area before, usually looking at simple scans like X-rays, which is 2D images, very simple to analyze. Here we looked at 3D CT scans. Computationally, this is very expensive. Without going into details, we built very sophisticated yet model that we could understand by having two main encoders, one to encode the features from the image, we call 3D image encoder, and another one which is a language model that encodes the features from the text report. And feeding this at the end together to a third model, we can ask the model to answer specific questions, but also we can ask it to generally describe what we see on the scan. As we can see, when we compare the predicted answer to the ground truth, it still shows very, very high overlap between the generated text and what we had on the report. To give you an idea how it works, here's an example where we have a CT scan, and we'll start to just ask to generally describe what we have on this CT scan. As you can see, it takes literally a few seconds to generate a report that usually could be an hour or longer based on the complexity of the case. Then this is important. We're not replacing here the radiologist or the experts, but this is supposed to be a very efficient tool that allows them to have this report quickly, and they can look at to confirm the case they're looking at. Generative AI also could play an important role in healthcare. I'm not sure if you know this fact or not, but we have currently around 20% of all healthcare data that is usable for or accessible for AI. There are many reasons for that. One of them is data heterogeneity. Most of the data comes collected from different devices. And these differences in the data doesn't allow to gather all of these data and use of them in a seamless way. The data imbalance, the demographics of the cohorts that we collect the data from usually leads to this data imbalance that if we use it as it is to develop an AI model, this means this AI model will be biased towards a specific group. And the data quality, because most of the time this data quality we collect couldn't be insufficient quality to feed to an AI model. We looked at this as well, and we used a method called diffusion probabilistic models. If you're familiar with these deepfake videos you watch online, if you see an image replicating someone or a video mimicking someone, it's the same technology, but here we're developing this for healthcare. If I could ask you to spend just 10 seconds, one of those images is synthetic, and the rest is real. So just have in your mind, spend a few seconds, choose one. It could be B1, C3. And I will reveal the answer just after I'll count to 5. Maybe we'll have prizes at the end. Okay? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So all of these images you have been looking at are all synthetic. And actually, all the ones on the right hand are real. It's very difficult to distinguish between the images that has been generated by the machine and the real images. This is impressive because this means if you have not sufficient images from a specific group, you can use such images to augment your data set. And this means also you can use this for privacy preservation. So this means like if you want to test a model, your images can stay there within the hospital or the healthcare organization, and you can just generate a synthetic set that you can generate and be able to share and use with the model that you're aiming to validate. Let's move to more interesting cases. So now we have seen examples of the perception AI, generative AI. What agentic AI could help us with? Very important case is when we look at the readmission of the intensive care unit. It's one of the most expensive units in any hospital. It has the most expensive technologies and the highly trained staff. It's usually overwhelmed, and there's a problem that sometimes the patients could leave the ICU, but they return back again. And this unplanned admission puts pressure on the ICU unit and the healthcare organization. So we have looked at that by gathering electronic healthcare records and patient history from more than 200,000 patients. And we have trained another large language model here to be able to give some simple description in a natural language about the patient history, and then the machine will tell us if this patient is likely to be readmitted when they're discharged from the ICU or not. As you can see in the bottom, you start just to write in a natural language the description of the patient data you have, and then the machine will give you an answer for that. This is version 1. We actually have published version 2, where the machine is not giving you only yes or no, but giving you also explanation and more detailed answer about the decision. We also have looked at cardiovascular disease. There's lots of unhealthy lifestyles that most of us might have, and this could lead to a number of things, not only cardiovascular disease, but obesity, hypertension, diabetes, and they're somehow interlinked with CVD as well, or cardiovascular disease. So we developed a tool we call Chat CVD, and this tool, I wouldn't go into the details here, but it used some sophisticated technology that used large language model and another technology called Retriever Augmented Generation, or RAG. And the main idea here is to give some simple information about any of us. Any of us could use this tool and say, I'm 40 years old, I train twice a week, I follow vegetarian diet, whatever, and whatever simple information you can tell about yourself. And at the end, it would tell you if you are at high risk of cardiovascular disease or not. What's interesting about this, with the technology we have used, this Retriever Augmented Generation, it gives you the decision, but also tells you why you should see a doctor, why you are at high risk or not. But the answer is not pulled from a language model, so we avoid the hallucinations that the language model could give, because the Retriever Augmented Generation will pull this information from multiple medical sources. So we know that these are valid sources, and we know that this is something that we could trust. So the challenges in AI in healthcare at the moment: data privacy and trust. As we spoke, there's maybe around 20% of data that is accessible. There need to be a move to increase this amount of data to be able to move fast and develop more tools that could benefit the patients. Clinical validation bias. There's no data that is unbiased. Validation is also very tricky. Most of the time we need to have diverse data and high quality data set, and again, sometimes this is not available. Regulatory barriers as well. Now, any tool that if you think about to be able to use and test on a specific patient, the approvals usually takes 3 to 5 years. And this is something that probably we need to think about how we could expedite that as well. Future directions could be also thinking about how we could have these tools to work in real time. We have these tools now. It could take seconds, minutes, but hopefully in the future, with the evolve of the computers we have now, we could have this to work really in real time, but also on maybe like a simple device that we could have again in everyday use with the doctor. I think the message I want to deliver today is that AI is not here to replace doctors. I think with the stage of AI we have at the moment, we're really focusing on building AI that is really here to help doctors, not to replace them. So the idea at the end is we need to think, how do we ensure AI doesn't just be smarter, but be more human and work very close to improve what doctors do. I think this session is supposed to be fireside chat, so I wanted to prepare these slides, probe some interesting ideas from you about some discussions. So I think there's a barcode here where you can put, I'm not sure if this one or another barcode, where you can put really your, your questions. And I'm happy for the next 20 minutes or so to chat with you and be able to answer any questions you might have. Thank you so much. Glad to connect with you. This is my personal information. Thank you.
Thank you again, Dr. Ahmed Serag. And again, for those who have questions for our speakers, you may scan the QR code that is being displayed on screen to send them in. And again, of course, select the question will be shared with our speakers shortly. And again, we would like to invite Dr. Ahmed Serag again on stage, as we do have a couple of questions.
Thank you.
The first one that we have right here. First question, if a patient is discharged from ICU, it suggests that the patient is deemed less critical at the particular point of time. What would be the factors for readmission?
That's a very good question. So what we're trying to have here is, again, to have this tool to be used as alert or flagging to the doctor that you need to have a closer look at that. As I mentioned, with the second version of the technology we developed that unfortunately I didn't have a demo of it today, it actually tells you what relevant information about the patient's health that led to that decision. It could be they might have a severe condition that maybe the doctors didn't pay attention to, and so on. So it really pulls some of the medical information from the patient history file and flagged it to the doctor. At the end, this is more or less like, will be like an advisory tool, will advise the doctors, but at the end, they will be the ones who made the decision if the patient should be really released or not.
All right, let's move forward with the next question. Thank you. How do you balance automation with human empathy in healthcare delivery?
Wow, that's another very good question. I think AI in general is probably for all of us now, either in healthcare, society, or any other domain, is learning phase now. We all try to see how we cope with it. As I said, working with doctors for almost 20 years, I wanted to try to probe this this sensitive question today, because most of doctors, especially the ones that at older age, they're always very skeptical, scared of the technology taking their place. I think we are not there to replace them. As I said, I think with the technology we have now, we're really making sure that we deliver a technology that support, aid, what do they do, make their work more efficient. You can imagine a doctor in a lab that could be weekly getting hundreds of cases to look at, and we said maybe each case to generate a report could take 1 hour. You can imagine if they use a report generation tool based on AI, they go to the lab in the morning, they will find all the cases already for them, reports generated, prioritized in which cases are of highest importance to them to look at. This means like they can spend the time really they should spend on these cases. They now have free time that they could spend on other important things. And again, for how we as a human interact with AI is a learning curve. But I think we're always getting there. This confusing message, as I showed also at the start of my slides, there's people who say like AI is scary, we should avoid it. There's people like myself who said no, we have to use it. But I think it's honestly in what we have now, it's not this as scary as we think.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Serag. And again, of course, hopefully your questions are being answered right here. We're going to move along right here with the next question. Who do you think will drive the future of trustworthy AI in medicine? Academia, startups, or health system?
Another interesting question. So I spent myself the past 20 years or so between academia and industry. I graduated as, in my early degrees, a biomedical engineer, then done my PhD as a computer scientist, then done a couple of postdocs, then moved to industry, spent almost like 10 years over there. But even now I remember like my master thesis was even done at Philips, which is a company. So I can see the the advantage and disadvantage of all of these, and I think they will have to work together. There's a huge overlap between what do they do. In academia, you get the depth of the science and the technology. And this is very important because you want to move the field forward, and this wouldn't happen without really getting these deep dives into the science of the technology we develop. On the other hand, if you move to industry always keen about like the practical use of the technology you develop. In academia, you have a very interesting idea, you publish it, and most of the time that's the end of the technology you built. But in industry, this is what's interesting because you move the technology forward, you commercialize it, and make sure that it's usable by the healthcare providers and being used on the patients. Startups also playing an important role, pushing the frontiers of science and innovation, moving much faster than large corporates. Academia has very small, little funding to explore or scale ideas, but industry has. So if you think about all of these, they complement each other. So it's very difficult to say one of those will be responsible for having trustworthy AI. I think they're all gonna complement each other. And these are valid examples. Now I'm in academia and I collaborate with industry, and it was the other way around a few years ago. So this is definitely something that these three work in the ecosystem together to build this AI that is trustworthy and safe to be used in medicine.
All right, thank you, Doctor. We still have one more, last question. I will take this one. All right, how do you plan to incorporate this tool into the public health program?
So most of these tools we have now are available to be used for research purposes only. If you want to take any of these tools to be moved in clinical, there's a different path to go through. So this path is, as I mentioned, most of the times it's company that seek this path because it's not affordable for academias, and sometimes academias are not interested in that. They're interested more in the research part. Though some academic institutions also could license or patent these technologies, and some also academic institutions have spin-off companies, for example, based on these technologies. The thing is, AI in general, it moves so fast. And sometimes, if you think about licensing one of these technologies or even having a patent, it might not be very reliable because what you invent today, maybe tomorrow or in a few months, it will be obsolete. There will be newer technologies. If you think about the transformers as a technology that all of the large language models is built on, it came out of a scientific paper from Google. It's not patented at all, and everyone is using this technology. So it really depends how you want to use it. If you're going to use it for clinical, unfortunately, you have to go through this sophisticated regulatory path. Otherwise, for research purposes, any of these technologies that we have developed are available to use.
All right, thank you. And again, thank you to Dr. Serag for that fascinating journey through AI's next frontier. Here, we'd like to invite Dr. Serag for a very quick photo session on stage. Thank you. Thank you again, and ladies and gentlemen, one more time, a round of applause for Dr. Serag.